Hi. It's an 11th hour moment because I've been promising an update. So a lot's been happening. Anger is one. And I've just been having these dreams. Yesterday was the retrograde, the meeting of the moon and Saturn. And I had a dream last night of my dad who met this young boy, and he handed him his long blonde hair. And I know that when he was young, he used to have these blonde locks. And the boy that was in the dream, he had these really nice, stunning blue eyes. My dad has blue eyes. And I realised that it was the form of Samson and the hair. That Samson had this strength, and it was his hair that gave him this supernatural power, and God asked him to keep that hair. And he got betrayed and then lost his eyes in the midst of having his head shaved. I haven't got it in the complete order, but you'll get the gist. Because there's so much to say. The Philistines, they captured him and took his eyes. And I had to read through that story because I knew my dream held a lot of information, and I was led to look up this Samson and that long blonde hair. And what stood out was the fact that he'd lost his eyes. And I talk about vision, the importance to have your eyes on the prize. Being able to reach for something bigger than yourself in order to keep going when things get hard, and to give you hope and momentum and all this stuff that keeps you being authentic and creating. Because they say with trauma that you can't create and be in your trauma at the same time. So, vision. And I was reminded of vision. The fact that when I read the Bible, I Googled the story. And I realised that I was a little disturbed to read that he had his eyes gouged. And he said the prayer before killing off the Philistines who captured him and took out his eyes. And the prayer he said was, strengthen me just once more and let me, with one blow, get revenge on the Philistines. And then he died. But then what I realised in my dream is that my dad was passing on the supernatural power to somebody younger than him who had these blue eyes, which, feeling into it now, I believe means that my dad would have lost his vision whilst leading in a movement named Children of God. And that was due to the coercion I believe I'm saying it right, of the nature of essentially a cult, the brainwashing. And I have been doing a lot of speaking on the nervous system and how soul integration is an important piece to tending to the nervous system, and that we have to repetitively create patterns that are new in order to reinforce a narrative that goes beyond the instilled beliefs lodged in the body. And the fact that we have to kind of brainwash ourselves into believing in our power and evidencing the power, it becomes a little bit convoluting for me, if that's the word, a little bit triggering. Because you may notice I last posted about an oyster, and that I was told to treat the oyster compassionately, and that the pearl within it derives from the wound. And I always say that it's important to practice what you preach. So I've had to dig really deep with my wounds, because I am using the very thing that I would have originally run away from to activate my vision of creating originally this subscription group, because it's about building a tribe. And again, that can be triggering because there's a certain consciousness of my experience of tribes early on. So I've ended up recently noticing mild resentments surfacing subtly in many forms. And I'm observing these resentments because I realise it's my inner child feeling as though she doesn't want this responsibility to lead. And I'm having to settle with her that it's perfectly okay. And I had 3 dreams in a row since last night where my dad had been in my sleep telling me that he gives me permission, giving me the okay, giving me the thumbs up, that I'm onto something, and that it's blessing the lineage with abundance. So it's entered my consciousness 3 times to date. Enough for me to take notice of what's going on. And I realise this is the second vulnerable video that I'm sharing, and it's because I guess this is how it's meant to be. And I've had so many, I'm going to say downloads. I always say downloads. This morning I heard the word subscribe to everyone who likes you. And yeah, that was definitely a voice outside of myself. And what I felt this was saying was, I've been very busy trying to secure my safety, my income, on the easy way, the counselling way, the accredited psychotherapist who has a label. And I've been searching more in those areas to form my work, which has led me to take the eyes off the ball a little with the subscription group. And what the words were telling me was, you've got to bag in, or it's about, you've got to invest in those people who believe in you, who have already subscribed to you, and subscribed in the fact that they need me to invest in them more. And even in the prayer that Samson said before he killed the Philistines and then himself, was strengthen me one last time. And I don't think I'm on my last legs, but I think that I'm nearly there in terms of embracing the wound and finding myself within it. And I feel like this is the last little piece, this bit about actively sharing the raw and vulnerable me, the wound within my teachings, within the teachings that I have discovered. And that is the wound I've had with faith. So I always say that when you are an instrument to God, the universe, you have to step out the way. And that's exactly what I am attempting to do, is to get rid of that ego, or not, because we never get rid of the ego, but to come away from the ego in order for me to help somebody who might need this, because it's not about me anymore. And what also came in was, I heard the word, I gave you everything you own. And when I heard that, what it felt to me was, be grateful. And I've been contemplating the concept of radical forgiveness and the work about seeing to the spoilt child. And it's a little bit controversial, but it made sense to me when I sat with it, because context is everything. And when I was able to centre myself, I could really understand where this was coming from. It was a little bit provocative, but I got there in the end. So I'm giving it a push. Somebody said to me this morning on a call, and this is the last little piece I want to add in to this update. Somebody said to me that I think I need to reference in how he came in. It was through a mutual friend who I grew up with. I've known her since I was 16, and she has a contact on my Facebook who is optimizing websites, and he put a post out about his years of therapy and healing and how he wanted to put back and help therapists, and he was offering a free consultation to discuss website optimization. And I didn't know entirely exactly what he was offering, but my friend tagged me, and then I ended up taking a call this morning, and he had looked through my website and lots of other things, but one of the things that really stood out, because he asked me my background as a therapist, what's my sort of desire, and what do I want to draw in terms of work. And I mentioned randomly about being brought about this coercion, control, and cult recovery, that I'm noticing my work is veering to acknowledge that. And because I get a lot of referrals for addiction seems to come my way. And the thing is with addiction is we tend to conventionally treat that with 12 steps. And I like to offer a more holistic approach to 12 steps, because it is a relationship with higher power. And when we put the call to an end, he messaged back a little later and shared that he would like to help out in whatever ways with his marketing expertise, but that he can mildly appreciate. He said it along them terms because he understood the capacity of what I've experienced